At the Lawrence Municipal Airport, winds from the north at 6. That makes the wind chill 25, so definitely bring a coat wherever you may happen to be going this morning. We're talking real estate live and local here on this Tuesday. It's every other week here from the Lawrence Board of Realtors on KLWN. Today, I've got welcoming to us Diane Fry from Fairway Mortgage, also Joyce Slavens from Stevens Real Estate, and we're going to be talking a little lending today. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Appreciate you stopping by. Let's start really basic with this. So let's start with the idea of, if we're talking lending, we're obviously talking about mortgage loans. What's a mortgage loan when compared to like other loans that people, how is it different from, maybe a car loan or even a signature loan if you're, going to a bank and you just need some money?
Well, a mortgage loan, we're going to pull all 3 credit bureaus. So sometimes when you get a car loan, they just might pull Experian. We're going to pull all 3 bureaus. We're going to average, throw out the high, throw out the low, use the middle. It's a 30-year mortgage, so it's a little different. Most car loans are 5 years or 6 years. I guess you can do a 10-year car loan now, but so they're a 30-year, 15-year, 30-year. I
wouldn't recommend that,
yeah,
by the way.
me neither. But that, it's probably the longer terms.
So yeah, and the other thing is, obviously with a car, but with a signature loan, it's not a secured loan. With a mortgage loan, you have property that's on the that's on the line. When you get a loan, you need to know that it's something that you can handle, because if you don't, then you lose your property.
That's right, and it's actually a recorded document. It's funny. I had someone call me about not wanting that to be a public information. I'm like, no, it's public information.
Yeah. Now, there are kind of some ways to get, I don't want to get too sidetracked,
Yeah.
but there are ways to kind of get around that. You can set up, for example, a trust that you can name whatever you want. That could be the owner of the loan, in your stead, that kind of thing can be done.
Yep.
But there are ways to, you're not really getting around it being public information. It still is, but you're making it legally different from what a just average person would do.
Right.
So let's, again, starting from the basics, what are some of the, if someone is thinking they're an apartment dweller, they've been out on their own, maybe they have a little bit of money saved up and they think that it's time for a house, what, some of the basic things that you need to have if you're going to qualify for an actual home mortgage?
Probably the first thing to do is talk to a lender, and you're going to need, pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, bank statements, that type of stuff. I mean, there are 100% loan programs out there, USDA, VA. There's 3% down conventional. There's FHA. So depending on credit score, down payment, you can get a gift now for any kind of a mortgage. It used to be that you had to have your own funds for conventional. Now parents can gift you money for a down payment. Take a loan from your 401k. So, those are all different types of loans. There's also some down payment assistance programs out there if you're a first-time home buyer.
So you don't necessarily have to have $30,000 in the bank to buy a home.
Absolutely not.
So that's certainly something that I think a lot of people would not be aware of, because that used to be the thing, was that you needed to have 20% of the
down.
value of your house before you even, started talking about that.
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes you could get help from other people, but sometimes you wouldn't qualify for the loan that way.
Right.
The key to, but there's another side of the coin which has changed a lot really since the 2007 bubble, which is that lenders are a lot more a lot stricter about your income and asset proof than they used to be. It used to be, stated income, stated assets, and you could get a home loan, which the people that seems to hurt the most are entrepreneurs, people that have, that actually have a pretty good income, but have a hard time proving it because for tax reasons, you want to make sure that your income is as low as possible if you own a business. But, there are times where, your business has a huge cash flow, but you have set it up in such a way that it comes as close to breaking even as you can make it come close to. And then you go to a bank and they say, well, according to this, your AGI is $12,000 a year. You can't afford this house.
That's right. It happens every day.
Yeah. So, so what are some of what is a lender going to be looking for as far as, if you're a regular wage earner, that's easy. You have pay stubs, like you said. Mm-hmm. But even in that scenario, how much do you need to be making in order to qualify for, let's just say, what's an average house? $220,000 here or something like that.
Right.
What do you need your income to be to actually qualify for a loan?
Well, it depends on how much debt you have. So we're going to let your total debt to income, meaning all of your bills that are going to show up on a credit report. So not utilities, not daycare, but we want you to be around 45 to 48% total debt to income. So we're going to take that house payment and all that debt.
If you have a car payment, for example, if you have credit cards, whatever.
Yep. Student loans probably are the biggest problem right now. Lots and lots of student loan debt. The guidelines have changed recently where you have to count a 1% payment on a student loan debt. So if you have $200,000 in student loan debt, that's a big number. So, there's lots of different, without getting technical, lots of different ways to figure student loan debt. But if your student loan debt is in deferment and there is not a payment showing up on credit, we have to count a 1% balance. So it's a lot. Student loans are probably one of the biggest issues right now we're having.
Now, we talked about the fact that you don't have to necessarily have a huge amount of money saved up, but it's not a bad idea. The bigger you have in terms of a down payment, the better you're going to look to a lender.
Sure, and you don't have private mortgage insurance. So unless you put 20% down, you have private mortgage insurance. So, rates and private mortgage insurance and homeowners insurance are all based on credit score. So the better credit score you have, the better it is.
And to give people an idea about that PMI can be a pretty huge thing. On a $220,000 house, I'm going to guess that's a little over $200, maybe 200.
Well, I did one this morning, and it was $212 a month, but not great credit. So the better your credit is, then the lower that PMI is going to be, and the lower your homeowner's insurance rate's going to be. I mean, everything right now are based on credit scores.
All right, so that makes a huge difference. Yeah, makes a big difference. So. Obviously, that's one of the things, if you're thinking about being a homeowner and you aren't right now, that you could start working on is getting your credit score in as good a position as possible. And there are groups that will help you with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just things that you can learn online in terms of, for example, you don't want to cancel credit cards, but you do want to get the balance off of them.
Well, what you want to do is not be more than 30%. So
Right.
if you have $1,000 limit, don't have more than $300 charged on it.
Right.
So that's the key.
But a lot of people will be in that situation and think the best thing that they could do is pay that $300 off and then cancel the credit card.
Bad
That's
idea.
actually the worst thing that you could do, because it's what you were talking about. It's all from your available credit. So if you have a $1,000 credit card that you're not using, and then you have another credit card that you have, maybe 40%. Of the available credit, they take both of them into account and add that $1,000 to your available credit on the other card, so you're better off that way.
Right.
As long as you have the discipline to not use it if you have it.
That's the problem. Is if your credit cards are maxed out, that is the worst thing you can do for your credit.
So one of the things that we've talked about on a number of occasions with regard to these home loan situations is getting pre-approval. When you are looking to buy a home, that makes a huge difference in terms of looking to be a desirable purchaser to as a buyer to a potential to a seller.
Yes, it's essential. I don't even like to go out with anybody until I know that they are pre-approved, because it can be not only a waste of my time, but a waste of their time as well. And there's nothing worse than going out with somebody looking at $400,000 homes when they can only really afford a $200,000 home. They're never happy. They're never happy with the $200,000 after you've gone out to see a $400,000 home. So it wastes everybody's time, and it makes the expectations unrealistic.
So let's talk a little bit about that pre-approval process. When you go to a lender, you don't go there and say, I'd like to be pre-approved for $400,000. You go there, give them your information, and then they basically tell you what you qualify for. Right?
Yes, and it's not always what you qualify for too. Isn't necessarily what you would like to spend. So when I send my clients to get pre-approved, I let them know that that's not what they have to spend, and that they should also let their lender know where they're comfortable at their payment being, so that their lender can give them what that number, what that pre-approval number is. So if they're pre-approved for $400, but they only want their payment to be, $1,500 a month, then the lender can give them what that number is, and that gives us all, a comfort level for everyone to go off of from there.
As a realtor, do you have advice to people that you give in terms of, there is this desire, or some people will have a tendency when they get that pre-approval number to think that they should spend what they're approved for. That whatever is the most I can get away with, that's what I should be spending. And there's an argument for that. That is to say, houses do tend to appreciate, and eventually you'll get to the point where you're going to have lots of equity in there, and it will be good. And if you can handle the payments for a little while, maybe you should do that. But there's also arguments against it, where maybe you might be able to afford this if you're going to eat a lot of bologna and so on and so forth. But maybe you'd be better off looking at something that's like, what kind of advice do you give to people?
I think really nowadays, I think people's expectations are pretty. They know where they're comfortable at, and I don't encourage people to go over that, because I've been selling real estate since 2000, so I've seen the crash, and I've seen what it does to people, and I've seen people having to sell their homes because they can't make their payments, and it's devastating. And I think for the most part, people that I deal with are realistic as to what they can afford. And I mean, they might vary a little bit. They might go up $5,000 or $10,000 if they're not finding what they want, but generally speaking, I think they're pretty conservative usually on that.
What about for people that have been renters their whole lives? They've never owned a house. Are there any little red flags or things that you should tell them that because I mean, people know the sort of generalities that sometimes your mortgage payment will be less than your rent payment, but that doesn't take into account your property taxes and other things that you have. But also the maintenance and upkeep on houses are a lot higher than you don't really have much of a lawn with an apartment and so on and so forth,
Yeah, I read an article one time that said the average homeowner can expect to spend $3,000 a year in home maintenance. And I think that's a pretty good rule to live by and follow, and just making sure that that the homeowner has the money in the bank to take care of those things that go wrong. Don't part with all your money for your down payment or your closing cost. I mean, you have to have that nest egg, because things will go wrong.
Well, I can attest to that as a homeowner. I mean,
Yeah.
Heck, even just this winter, I had a draft inducer motor go out on my furnace, which could have cost as much as $1,500 or something like that. That right there, that's half of that
You
money.
can't call the maintenance man for that.
Well, I didn't.
Well,
But,
they won't. It's not paid for.
yeah.
You're writing a check for that.
But at any rate, and then other things. That's another issue, by the way, is that the handier you are, the better you are with that. If you have, say, a leaky faucet that that you can fix for $3 with seats and springs, or you can fix it for $150 with a plumber.
Right.
So it's not a bad idea to learn that kind of stuff, or if you're good at it, or whatever. Anyway, so all right. So what else would you talk to people about as far as giving them an advantage as a buyer with regard to the loan process? This is especially at the lower end, at the affordable housing, but more importantly, that kind of meat area that we were talking about in the $220,000 range. It's very competitive around here. Houses
Right.
don't stay on the market very long, or whatever. What makes you a competitive buyer?
Well, I think to be pre-approved by a local lender is the biggest thing the biggest advantage that you can have, because there's nothing better than knowing who that person is going to, knowing that they are competent, that they don't give out pre-approval letters unless they are sure that those buyers are pre-approved, and also being able, if something goes wrong, I mean, you can go talk with them face to face. Whereas a large mortgage company, you can never get a hold of anybody. So I think it's a big question, and it's something that we push when we take offers to our seller, that this person is pre-approved through a local lender, such and such. They have a great reputation, and that it takes you to the top of the list.
Yeah, one of the things we say is get your documents together, because sometimes we'll have a pre-approval and it'll say subject to W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, blah, 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 which means all we've done is pulled credit. And I think it's important for the realtors to look at that. And if you have a pre-approval from someone that there are no conditions, we've seen all of their documents. And that's what I say to people, you've got to bring your stuff in here. We've got to give a clean pre-approval if we want to be competitive.
We're talking with Diane Fry there from Fairway Mortgage, and also from Joyce Slavens from Stevens Real Estate. We've been talking about the lending information process. And, the other thing that we haven't really talked much about as far as the lending situation that we're in right now is we're still in a situation right now where rates are as low as they have been in like a century. I mean, the house my parents live in is the house they bought a couple of months before I was born, and they still live there. And they paid that mortgage off a while ago. But they, at the time, this would have been late 60s, got a 6.5% rate, which at the time seemed like a really great number. Mm-hmm. People would gasp and and have a conniption over a number like that today. And we've been like that for a while now. And
rates are crazy low.
And it gives people a lot more buying power than they used to have.
Yeah. But what happens is, let's say you're tight and you get pre-approved and we're at 3.5. Now all of a sudden rates go up to 4.25. Big difference in payment and qualifying.
Yeah.
So rates are unbelievable, and they're going down every day. They're not going up. So
at the moment, but you
At
never
the
really know
that's
when
right.
that's going to happen. And that is another thing that we really also haven't talked much about. We've kind of made the assumption that everybody's going to have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, but people don't do that. First of all, people don't stay in homes for 30 years. Some people do, but that's not the average thing. So a lot of times people are willing to get an adjustable rate mortgage, a 5 or 7 year, because they know they're only going to be in the house for a short period of time. What is your, what do you talk to people about if they're going to be a buyer and they're thinking about, home? Because you can save yourself a ton of money, because remember, when you first get a house, that's when you're paying the most interest. And so even a change of 0.25%, for example, going from a fixed rate to an adjustable rate, can make a huge difference if you know you're going to be leaving soon.
yeah, adjustable rates, people don't. I bet I haven't done an adjustable rate in 5 years. I mean, people just don't love them. They lived through it last time. They have no interest in doing it again. So, and actually, there are some days when an adjustable rate is actually higher than a fixed rate, which is very odd. It's just the way that the market is. But rarely do people do adjustable rates anymore. I mean, lots of 15 years right now when rates are so low, more 15 years than I've ever seen.
And again, you can save yourself a ton of money doing it that way.
That's right. And if you can qualify, why would you not?
Right. And by the way, even for people that are only going to be in the house for 5 years or 10 years, there's still an advantage to getting that 15-year mortgage, because you have paid so much more of the principal down, so that when you do eventually sell the home, you have so much more of the equity in it. So you're,
That's right.
when you then go to another house somewhere else, you'll have a lot more to start with.
Yep. It's a good thing to do. I mean, sometimes people will say, I don't really want to be stuck with the 15 years, so tell me what that payment looks like, and they'll just pay extra on your principal. There's no penalty to pay it off early or pay extra payments.
Right, you can do it that way as well.
Sure.
Get the 30-year mortgage, but make an extra principal payment every month or whatever.
Right.
There's some people that use that technique of making like a 13th payment every year, or pay every 2 weeks instead of paying every month.
Right.
And either of those will add, will put you ahead of the curve, so to speak, and and make things a little bit easier when time is coming out. So,
Right.
All right. Any last bits of advice before we wrap things up for the morning?
No, I think it's going to be another great year. The market has already picked up and moving right along, and I think now's the time to get your pre-approval out and get out and start looking.
We're telling people, don't think about a refi. Get that house on the market and go buy something else.
All right, there you go. That was Diane Fry with Fairway Mortgage you last heard, and then also Joyce Slavens with Stevens Real Estate. This has been Real Estate Live and Local every other week here on Radio for Grown-Ups on